Alright, welcome back to another episode of Sean and Ed's Do Baseball.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Ed's.
And we're talking baseball history.
Right, we're a bi-weekly baseball history podcast where the story catcher doesn't know what the story pitcher is going to be on the mound throwing them. I don't know why I always seem to have to think about that first. I've been saying it for like 50 episodes.
Whatever, this is episode 98?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, this is 98, and we've been doing that for a while, and I don't know, fuck it. I like the analogy. We're just rolling with it. We're rolling with it. Well, yeah, I'm pitching today, I guess. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to keep coming up with different analogies in the description. It's like curveball, high fastball, changeup.
Yeah. Whatever. It works.
There's been a knuckleball episode. Anyways, where can people find us on the internet?
You can find us on Twitter or X.com, whatever you're calling it these days, at Doing Baseball, and on Instagram and TikTok at Doing.Baseball. Yeah. And I am on Twitter.x.com at Ed's Do Baseball.
Yeah, and I'm at Sean Do Baseball, and wherever you're finding us, however you're finding us, thank you so much for listening, and it's always great if you can give us a review, a rating, tell your friends, tell everybody about this. It's November now, and the cold depths of winter is upon us.
Yeah, winter is here. No, it's probably not here yet.
Well,
by the time this comes out, it's probably not here yet.
No, well, either way. It's November by the time this comes out. And one of our friends, our sponsor, in fact, can help you out through this winter. And Two Loons Brewing have both a lager and an IPA brick and mortar location coming to you soon. You can find their beers in Ontario, at the LCBO, and at your local bar. And check them out at twoloonsbrewing.com. And, of course,
please be of legal drinking age, and, of course, please enjoy responsibly.
And I will, Edsy. Yes. I'm going to enjoy responsibly, and we're going to enjoy this story. So you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. I'm ready to hear your story here.
All right. So this one is a bit different. I'm very excited to share this. I know I've been giving you lots of hints.
You gave me some very confusing hints, my friend.
When I'm excited for a story, I'm just like, I want to tell you, but I can't. And funny enough, there's no way you would have known, but your last story that we recorded took place in 1999.
Okay.
This story takes place in 1999.
Okay, interesting.
So
you said there was a coincidence there.
That is it.
That's just it.
That's it.
It's not about Al Leiter.
It's not about Al Leiter and his Mets career, no. But we were both born in the late 80s, so we can both vaguely remember when there used to be two sets of umpires.
Yes. I do remember that.
So there was the
National League umpires and there was the American League umpires, and they both had different uniforms. They had different rules to enforce, I guess.
Well, I guess with the pitcher hit, there was slightly different variations between the leagues. So they didn't mix other than the World Series and the All-Star game, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, in 1999, Major League
Baseball... Did they, just quickly, maybe you probably will talk about this, but did they mix, like crews for the whole thing, or would it be, still the National League umpires in the National League Park? And
yeah, I'm smiling like an idiot, because I have no idea.
Okay. Can't remember. Okay, carry on.
Yeah, I believe, they definitely mix for the All-Star game. Mm-hmm. They would definitely mix for that.
Right.
But... in 1999, Major League Baseball wanted to bring all the umpires, including the 66 members of the Major League Umpires Association, under one umbrella and have them directly report to the commissioner instead of the presidents of each league.
Okay.
The MLUA, which you will hear a lot, was not thrilled with this proposal. And to top it off, during spring training in 1999, pressure was being put on umps to call a high strike zone by Sandy Alderson, who had gotten the assignment to oversee the umps from the owners.
Okay. That's interesting. To knowing what we talked about in the last episode.
Oh my god, yeah. That is actually very interesting.
Yeah.
But this understandably rubbed some of the more experienced strike callers the wrong way, with some accusing Alderson of not using the proper channels to amend the strike zone.
Okay.
So they're like, you can't just put pressure on us to call higher. Like, you go, there's channels, you got to go, the players' union needs to be involved.
Yeah.
Especially, they're the ones that are going to have to deal with the players and the managers and the fans if they're calling high strikes and they're disagreeing with it, right?
In theory, it would be a lot more arguments on the field.
Yeah. So Richie Phillips, who was the umps' fiery union chief, he had led them successfully at this point for over 2 decades. He pushed back and publicly detested what he saw as overreach from the commissioner's office. The umpires union saw it as owners seeking to regain more control over them, who had done very well in their last labor negotiation. So they're like, yeah, they're fucking with us because we
won.
And you'll hear about that.
Okay.
The owners were definitely seeking more control, but they felt, and some will still agree to this today, that umpires, especially the bad ones, seemed nearly untouchable, and it was impossible to get rid of them, no matter how bad they were at their jobs.
Okay. We see that every season with a certain umpire.
Yeah, well,
certain few umpires.
Exactly. So speaking of which, the commissioner's office went one step further to piss off the umps in the spring of 1999 by releasing to the public a survey from the Players Association in which the players rated the umpires.
Okay.
So you got players, filling out scorecards on umpires.
Got like an all-star ballot for umpires, but
on the opposite end of things too, right? So obviously it's nice if you're the umpire that wins, but it's not nice if you're the umpire.
No. And I'm sure a lot of players would weigh more on the criticism side than the praise side.
Well, exactly, right? So, and the umpires, it's not good, especially that this is released. It's probably good that the players are giving feedback, but it's not good that it was released to the public.
Right. Yeah, because it comes across as though they're trying to make them look bad.
Yeah. So the union was furious. And just so you know, Tim McClellan and Jerry Crawford, according to the survey, were baseball's top umpires, according to the players. While Ken Kaiser and Charlie Williams were rated the worst. But the survey didn't just rate their calls, but their temperament as well. So that was just for them, making calls.
Okay, well, just quickly to stop you, it's interesting because Jerry Crawford was the home plate umpire in Game 6 of the 99.
Well, he had to be good then.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they didn't just rate the calls, but the temperament, the physical fitness, as well as the respect they showed players, which is a little weird. Mm-hmm. And Joe West was last among National League umpires for respect to players and temperament in that category. He had apparently body slammed a player a few years earlier, and there was no consequences.
Okay.
Which might be a story for another day.
Yeah.
But he was going to be suspended, but
he's like the modern Major Kurth.
Yeah, and he was going to be suspended, but the commissioner kind of oversaw it. Right. That kind of comes back a little bit.
Okay.
So in response, an angry umpires union head Richie Phillips said, "I give no credence whatsoever to those ratings. I think they're patently absurd. I've even been told that some players had their kids fill them out."
They probably did.
Yeah, well.
There were probably some guys that were super passionate, though, that were like, I gotta fucking make sure that Joe West knows how I feel about him.
Exactly. So trying to calm the situation, NL President Len Coleman said, "I will point out that umpire popularity was a factor, and the skills and qualities of many fine umpires were distorted." So he's just they were the guys that aren't popular definitely looked worse than they actually probably were.
Right. It's not, it's not an accurate, it's not really data driven, so.
Yeah, it's just the players giving feedback.
Yeah.
It just shouldn't have been released. So things were not good between the two camps, and Major League umpires refused then refused to work an exhibition game between the Orioles and the Cuban national team on May 3rd, 1999.
I figured it out.
Basically. So union representatives wanted to negotiate the pay, which was just $125 per umpire for exhibition games as per their contract.
So, it doesn't seem like a lot.
No, not a lot. So the MLB refused to negotiate the umpires' fees, and the umps just said no. They're like, no, you can't make us do a weird exhibition game in the middle of the year.
Yeah.
Make us. you know?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, so Union Associate Counsel Pat Campbell said, we don't work exhibition games. And I guess he was right. So
They're spring training games, not exhibition games?
I assume so, but I guess that's what that fee is based on. And they were like, this is a bigger setting than a spring training game, so we should be paid more. And MLB was like, says in your contract, exhibition game, 125. And they were like, oh, okay, so we just won't show up.
Okay.
So it's like...
So that's they're striking.
Well, they didn't really strike. There was nothing in the contract that would make them do this either.
Okay.
So they were just like, find other people. And they did. They found a mix of AAA and Cuban umpires instead.
Okay. We got some call-up umpires.
Yeah. Well, and in fact, in the Havana, because there was a game in D.C., I think, and then there was a game in Havana, and the Havana game was umped entirely by Cuban umpires. And originally the MLB was like, to the umpires union, like, you guys are going down, right? And they were like, once again, like, how much are you paying us? And they're like, well, it says 120.
Yeah, okay.
No. So things were bad. Things are bad, but there's no fears of a labor disruption as the union was in the middle of a contract, right? Mm-hmm. Baseball fans probably had the right, though, to feel a little uneasy about anything to do with labor clashes, seeing as 1994 player strike was a recent and painful memory.
Yeah.
But Eds, you probably don't remember because you were 6 or 7, but it wasn't just the players and owners who were at odds in 1994 and 1995. In fact, the umpires were locked out to start the 1995 season, compounding baseball's already tarnished image as the first week of an already shortened 144-game 1995 season was arbitrated by scab umpires.
Really?
Yeah.
Like the whole season when it came, or
the first week,
or the first week.
Yes. So I'll tell you why. The umps, with the help of Canada having better labor laws than the USA, were able to negotiate a new contract and a sweetheart deal. So basically, the owners lock them out, right?
Yeah.
The players strike August, everything goes to shit. They come back. The season's only 144 games, and to start that season, the first 6-7 games for everybody, there is AAA umps essentially umping major league games, and the only reason that the Major League umpires got back is the Ontario Labor Board ruled that replacement umpires could not work games in Toronto because Canada has much stronger labor laws than the U.S. So they were like, no, you can't. If they're being locked out, you can't
replace them with somebody else. Yeah.
So the league was forced to pick up the pace on negotiations, and the umps came out on top. So that's how they got their sweetheart deal. Their pay went up from $60K minimum to $75K minimum, and the top end increased from $175 to $225, but that was just their base. In the World Series, they would get $5,000. Now they get $17,500.
Wow.
And
per game or per series?
Per series.
Okay.
And then for those who work the league championship series, they'd get $15,000 instead of $5,000 as well.
Wow.
So a lot more than $125 a game. Yeah. So Phillips said snidely to the press, I don't want to say the Toronto decision itself triggered the agreement or the performance of the scabs triggered it, but I'd have to say those two factors were substantively contributory to the fact that the pace accelerated and we were able to get a deal.
Okay, so
basically Canada to the rescue for the umps.
Yeah.
On top of that, Richie Phillips was adamant that the umps should get paid in full for the 1995 season. As Richie Phillips said to reporters, the umpires were neither penalized for the players' strike nor for the owner's lockout of the umpires. That was critical as far as I was concerned for getting the deal done. So the umpires all get back pay. So they get paid as if it's a 162-game season.
Okay.
Even though it's not.
So they did get that's a pretty good deal.
They got a fucking deal. This Richie Phillips dude is great, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely great.
Okay, I don't like your tone.
So the umpires won, but feelings were still hurt by the lockout and the use of scab umpires. The union once again reared its head the next season when an incident between Roberto Alomar and John Hirschbeck took center stage in North American media.
I know this one. I think I know this one.
So during the first inning of an Orioles vs. Blue Jays game in Toronto, umpire John Hirschbeck struck out Roberto Alomar on a called third strike. Alomar did not like the call. Let's just put it that way. So he's screaming at the ump. Before the manager could get between them, Alomar, of course, was ejected. But then, before he could exit the field and the manager's in between, he spits in John Hirschbeck's face.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's not the worst part of this. And let me tell you, Eds, yeah, that's not the worst part of this. I was too young to...
How could that not be the worst part?
Oh, buddy.
Oh, no.
No, it goes downhill from here for a while. So Alomar would face repercussions for his actions, but he actually didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And to make matters even worse, Alomar used the press to get a little bit too personal, which he claimed is what set him off in the first place. So this is the dispute now. So Alomar says to the press that he spit in Hirschbeck's face because the ump began using racial insults against his mother.
Okay.
Which is like, yeah, that would make me mad too.
Yes.
And an umpire should not be doing that. But Hirschbeck denied the claim, saying that if he used any vulgar language, it was after he was spit on, not before. He's like, I did not say anything racist before I was spit on.
Let me be abundantly clear.
I want to be very clear on this one. After I was spit on, yeah. Yeah. So then Alomar said something really personal. And I quote, "I used to respect him a lot. He had a problem with his family when his son died. I know that's something really tough in life. But after that, he just changed. Personality-wise, he just got real bitter." So...
That's not a cool thing to just, say as, your reasoning for...
spitting in a guy's face? Yeah. Well, his son died.
He used to be nicer, and then his son died. Now he's mean, so that's why I spit on him.
And yeah, in 1993, so 3 years before, his 8-year-old son, John Drew, died from ALD, a rare condition that causes inflammation to the brain. And here's what, very worse, his 9-year-old son now, Michael, was diagnosed with the same infection.
Oh, God.
So
that's terrible.
When John Hirschbeck heard the quotes, he ran through the Rogers Center, Skydome, I should say, to be historically correct, towards the visitors' locker room, on just screaming that he was about to murder Roberto Alomar.
Yeah, as you probably would, yeah.
Yeah. So his fellow umpires, I should say, kill Roberto Alomar. That was the quote, I believe, that was actually taken, that he was running through to the locker room screaming that he would kill Alomar. Uh-huh. So anyways, his fellow umps catch up with him. They take him back to the clubhouse before he can get his hands on Alomar. And Alomar is suspended 5 games. But, something that's pissed us off before as fans as well, Edsy, is when somebody does something that is very blatant and then they appeal it.
Yes.
And this was in the end of September. And Roberto Alomar appeals his 5-game suspension. And he is allowed to play the last 2 games of the season and the entire playoffs and serve his suspension starting in April.
What? The entire playoffs?
Yeah. Yeah. And let me make it a little bit worse. So after the incident, earlier in the day, Hirschbeck had taking the night off. Like, just chill. We don't need you tonight. Go back to the hotel.
Yeah, you can't call an unbiased game, sir.
Yes. So Hirschbeck gets to watch the man who spat in his face and said he was a dick because his child's dead, hit a game-winning home run off Paul Spojeric in the 10th inning to secure the Orioles the wild card spot in the AL.
Oh, God, that's fucking twisting the knife, as I said.
So the union is pissed.
Yeah.
The union is furious.
Yeah.
And
they got some emotional fuel now on their fire.
And they actually, now they're threatening strike.
Okay.
Now they're saying, and they follow through slightly, very slightly, as the Orioles' first division playoff games against Cleveland was delayed 17 minutes because the umpires refused to take the field.
Okay.
So the house was packed for the ALDS after the Orioles made the playoffs, and they're like, nah, fuck you guys, or fuck that guy.
Yeah. And this is all the umpires?
No, just that game specifically, because it's the Orioles, right? And Roberto. So it's kind of, they were making them, they were putting a show on it, making all the fans have to. Right. In a time before Twitter, everyone's just sitting there like, what's happening? Where are the umpires?
Yeah.
So Major League Baseball was horrified that yet another World Series would be canceled. So they sought an injunction from a federal judge, and the judge legally assured everybody that the umps could not strike because it would be a violation of the agreement they signed back in 1995, which we talked about because of Ontario.
Right.
So Alomar and Hirschbeck eventually made up. World Series played. Everything's good. Hirschbeck then... Oh, God, this is the one I forgot. Remember I said there's the most unfortunate quote of all times in this? So Hirschbeck,
this is it?
Hirschbeck gave us the most unfortunate quote in baseball history, and I quote, "If that's the worst thing Robbie ever does in his life, he'll lead a real good life. People make mistakes. You forgive, you forget, you move on."
Wait, it's unfortunate?
Well, Roberto Alomar's number is no longer retired in Toronto, not because he spit on John Hirschbeck.
No, yeah.
But because of something else he did. And the quote is, "If this is the worst thing he ever did in his life, he lived a pretty good life." And it's just like, it's Ron Howard voice. Yeah. He did not.
It was not the worst thing he did in his life. I got you. Okay. Yeah.
I don't think I'd have to walk you through that one too much.
That was my poor listening skills.
I was so excited for that, Edsy. I'm so excited for that. Anyways, so the damage was done, though, and the umps were circling their wagons. And back to 1999. So remember everything off the start in 1999. In June now of this year, MLB insider Pete Williams reported that MLB exec VP of Operations, who we talked about earlier, Sandy Alderson, had been chosen by the owners to oversee the umps and was concentrating on a new pet project: break the umpires union, that at least the arbitrator's stranglehold on the game.
Okay. The revenge tour.
Yeah. So things were pretty hot. The union's mad. Apparently Alderson's here to destroy them. Then an incident set off a chain reaction that would end in 22 umpires losing their jobs.
Oh my God.
On June 26, in a game between the Colorado Rockies and the San Diego Padres, Rockies pitcher Mike DeJean complained to third base umpire Terry Tata about a check swing call while he was walking to his dugout after the inning ended. Tom Hallion, who is the home plate umpire, interjected, and DeJean he basically said, "Get in the dugout." And DeJean responded, like, "Well, that's where I'm fucking going." Yeah. And he gets tossed.
Okay.
And Rockies veteran catcher Jeff Reed gets up and is just like, "What the hell?" So Hellion and his pitcher. So Reed loses it on Hellion, and it's Hallion. I don't know why autocorrect always does Hellion. Hallion, and he was joined by Rockies coach Milt May. And in the ensuing argument, it was alleged that Hallion made contact by bumping both Reed and May. Less than a week later, Hallion was suspended for 3 games without pay by NL president Len Coleman. Richie Phillips and the umpires union were fucking pissed.
Okay. It's a pretty hefty suspension, seems like.
It's pretty hefty, and remember, Joe Westlake body slammed a dude in 1990.
Yeah, nothing happened.
So
Joe?
They're like, what, for bumping a dude? So here's the quote from Richie. Tom did nothing on the field that would warrant the imposition of a sanction of any kind. So
they're saying nothing should have happened.
The suspension was unprecedented, as I talked about, and infuriated the umps who felt that they were being treated more harshly than a player who literally spat in their faces because they had no way to, less ways to get out of the suspension than the players did.
Yeah.
Then they saw it as the first step in reining in the union, and the umpires did not wish to be harnessed. They were already dealing with a new strike zone, public player criticism, and now an umpire suspension. The umpires held what was described a raucous 4.5-hour meeting in Philadelphia the day after the
All-Star. They're trying to make us look bad. Yeah. They're ganging up on us.
Yeah, so the first day that there's no games, after the All-Star game, they're like, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And they're furious at the MLB. And they voted to strike at first. But once again, they're like, you can't strike.
Yeah.
We signed a contract. And we won't strike until at least this date. And that's not there yet. So they decided to use a different tactic. And depending on who you ask, I mean, it was Richie Phillips. But depending on who you ask is who made the final decision. But either way, the umpires, they decided, would resign en masse and form a new union, which would be able to negotiate a brand new contract.
Okay.
So we're just going to tear it up.
We are the union formerly known as the Umpires Union. Here it is. It's a symbol. This is our symbol.
So
they princed themselves, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
And on July 14th, they're like, okay, we are going to resign en masse. A lot of them sign letters of resignation, but they say they're going to quit September 2nd.
Okay.
And that's...
So a month before the season's over?
Yeah. It's really bad.
Yeah, it's a bad time to have your umpires resign.
Yeah. So the threat was levied, and 57 of the 66 unionized umpires would quit on September 2nd, 1999. Phillips claimed 6 of the remaining umpires will soon be adding their resignations. There was 2, John Shulock and Darrell Cousins, who were not union members because they joined the AL staff as straight breakers during the 7-week walkout in 1979, which we might talk about one day. Okay. But anyways, Phillips said, we decided the union would not urge a strike in light of the collective bargaining agreement and in interest of the fans, so the season would go on in uninterrupted fashion. So like, it's fine. Like, we're not gonna strike. We're just gonna quit, and then you're gonna sign this new contract, and then we'll go to work on September 3rd like nothing happened.
Yeah.
But
sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, and also in resigning, the umps would be owed $15 million in severance according to the terms of their contract, like across all of the 66 unionized guys. Not individually, but still
I'm sure MLB is not happy about that.
No, and Phillips, I don't know. I read this as gleefully. I don't know if it should be gleefully, but Phillips said or claimed that the tension is much greater than it's ever been. Baseball is in a state of chaos.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
for him.
What happened next, Edsy, is one of the most conniving yet hilarious thing in baseball history.
Lay it on me.
Major League Baseball accepted all of the resignations.
They were just like, all right, you guys all quit? Nice.
Yep.
Okay.
They're like, bye.
Here's the door. Okay.
Yep. So Sandy Alderson.
So they didn't budge. They called the bluff.
They called the bluff. Sandy Alderson put it to the press. It's a threat to be ignored or an offer to be accepted.
Okay.
So they're like, well, you're either going to not quit, or if you do, cool.
Yeah, we'll just replace you.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. So even Alderson even passed aside the issue, saying it might actually be the cheapest solution. Even with all the severance, he's just like, yeah, whatever, we can afford it. It's probably cheaper.
We'll just pay them out, and then we'll just pay the next guys very little.
Very little. Then Alderson...
Who needs good umpires?
Then Alderson and the commissioners...
We'll go back to the one guy in a table system.
Smoking a pipe.
Yeah.
Hey, Eddie, what's the call? I burned my hand,
Yeah,
man.
we'll go back to the system where the fans vote on the fucking calls.
Yeah, who wants to be a millionaire style?
Yeah. Was he safe?
So, then Alderson and the commissioner's office leaked to the press that they had begun hiring replacement umpires from the minor leagues for September 3rd, and they had a contingency plan in place. So they're like, well, we're fine. Like, we're good. So suddenly, 57 umpires, along with Richie Phillips, collectively shit their pants.
They're like, oh, fuck. We made a big mistake.
We made a terrible mistake. This is a very Arrested Development.
Forgot how rich they were.
This is a very Arrested Development episode of Sean Neds Do Baseball.
Yeah.
I've made a terrible mistake. So there was a sudden and very big realization that they had all just quit for real. And panic ensued. And obviously the umps were not pleased with Richie Phillips. There was...
Goddamn it, Richie.
Yeah, there was an immediate insurrection with it being reported that some umps even sought to have Richie replaced right away. Phillips tried to save face, turning the issue back towards the commissioner's office, saying that reaction typifies the smugness and the arrogance that has led us to where we are, and it exemplifies the lack of appreciation for umpires.
Okay, it's hardcore.
Yeah. This did not help, Nancy. National League umpire Ed Montague said, "We're going to get killed. Sandy Alderson has bashed us, and people believe what they read or see." Yeah, man. Sorry. Keep going. They're going to believe the umpires are always the bad guys. We're in the bottom of the list.
I mean, he's not
wrong.
He's not incorrect.
He's not wrong.
Yeah.
So... Ed was right, and the umpires started getting booed and heckled right away, right? Because they haven't quit yet. They're still on their death march towards September 2nd.
Yeah.
So they're getting booed.
They're on their 2 weeks notice or however
2
many
months
2 months notice, whatever it is.
Yeah. So within a few days, umpire unions' strategy had exploded in their faces. 14 umpires immediately tried to rescind their resignation. And the union tried to sue baseball in federal court.
I was just kidding. No,
it was good. My friend said that it was a part of the tab for the night. So 14 try to rescind it right away. The union, and these 14 actually are get treated really much better than everybody else. Okay. And the union tried to sue baseball in federal court, asking that they be given until September 2nd to rescind the letters of resignation. They're like, whoa, we can still take it back, right?
Okay. All right.
The court would not side with the union, as the judge ruled that since the umpires quit, they were no longer provided job protection.
Nah, fuck you guys.
Well, they did quit.
Yeah.
So the umpires were now in serious trouble with the court decision. So on July 27th, the umpires conceded and announced they were withdrawing their letters of resignation. Major League Baseball responded by essentially saying, nah, we photocopied them. We're good.
We were prepared for this.
Yeah, we're good. You can't take it back. No take backsies. So Major League Baseball would not allow all of the umps to leave, but now they got their chance to handpick which umps could stay and which ones would be allowed to resign.
Someone go get those players' surveys.
Well, exactly. Remember, they were the whole point was just well, we can't get rid of the bad ones, and now they're just okay, so we'll pick the ones that get to come back.
Yeah.
So 22, as I said, 22 would lose their jobs. 9 from the American League and 13 from the National League. 25.
Not Joe West, though.
You'll see. I don't think so. Yeah, we'll get there.
Okay.
19 from the nine from the American League and 13 from the National League. 25 minor league umpires were hired to replace them starting September 3rd. Phillips swore he would fight to the death to restore the jobs of the 22 umpires. The union did what it could to fight for the umpires' jobs. Susan Davis, the union's labor lawyer, said baseball had no right to bar the umps from taking back their resignations because they weren't really resignations. It's like, we didn't quit.
Once again, we were just kidding.
So she argued in court that the resignation letters, and I quote, the resignation letters submitted by the umps were not really resignations. They were merely an attempt by a frustrated union membership to bring baseball to the bargaining table to discuss a new contract. It's just like you just had like one 4 years earlier and you did really good. So what the fuck? Mm-hmm. So the union tried to also show the humanity of the situation, which was very real, with Bill Hahn, I think I'm pronouncing that right, saying to the press, I'm 44, I have no job to go to, my wife and I are very scared of what lies ahead. So, just...
all I know is umpiring.
All I know is umpiring. Been calling balls and strikes since I was in the womb. In a more... Jesus. I was gonna say I was born because of a called strike 3. Just like boom.
Jesus Christ.
In a more egregious case that I wasn't able to look into further, Drew Coble said he was busy caring for his ailing wife, so he did not attend the meeting where the resignations were signed. He later received a letter from baseball accepting his letter of resignation, which he was like, I didn't do that. And AL said Coble's resignation was given in a telephone call, but Coble claimed that AL were liars and saying that he never told them such
like, yeah, he called us.
He called us. He was really drunk.
Yeah. He left a message.
We deleted it, but he quit.
Yeah. We lost the tapes.
So on August 3rd, the union filed unfair labor practice charges against the MLB with the National Labor Relations Board, and the president of the union, Jerry Crawford, left the prospect of a strike open, but in response, the presidents of both leagues threatened to fire any umpires that took part in a strike. You're just done, like, if you quit. So the umps were backed up against the wall.
Yeah, they have, like, no leverage here whatsoever.
Yeah, they overplayed their hand entirely.
Yeah.
And 22 umpires were about to lose their jobs. And blame began to get thrown around. This is where the divide between the two umpires really takes place. And you'll see American League umpire Dave Phillips, who had been one of the early umps to rescind his resignation letter and therefore kept his job, said, "It'll go down as one of the worst moves in the history of negotiations. He put us in harm's way. He put guys on the street." So he's talking about Richie Phillips.
Right.
Yeah. Dave. Anyways, so
he's mad.
He's mad, and the umps are pretty pissed, right? And remember, they just had this like big win. Everything was hunky dory, but then they didn't.
Yeah. So now they're under the thumb of
Major
MLB
League Baseball.
Again. Yeah.
On September 1st, the parties agreed on a severance package, which confirmed the loss of 22 umpires' jobs. The union had lost. Also, in that agreement, the union had pledged not to strike in protest. So they're like completely defeated.
Yeah.
It was a coup de grace for the commissioner's office. They had defeated the umpires, or more like the umps had really defeated themselves. With all the power now in the corner of the MLB,
Bud Selig is fucking ruthless, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. And Sandy Alderson. So, with all the power in the corner of Major League Baseball, offered to rehire 10 of the 22 umpires at the Major League level, 3 at the minor league level, and offered buyouts for 4 more, with the other 5 allowed to take retirement. But the union rejected the offer.
Okay, I was gonna say, like, they're just like rubbing salt in the wound at that point.
I mean, 10. Yeah. So instead,
I guess. I mean, they have a position.
The union's gonna fight this till the end, as you'll hear.
Right.
Instead, the 22 grievances were submitted to an arbitrator. That arbitrator, Alan Simonet, 2 years later, in May 2001, they would order the league to reinstate Drew Cobble, Gary Darling, Bill Hunn, Greg Kosk, Larry Pacino, Larry Vanover, and Joe West.
Oh, Joe West. Okay.
So he was
one of the guys who was on the edge there.
Yeah. So he gets his job back because of the arbitrator.
Mm-hmm.
Along with veteran umpires Frank Pulley and Joe Tata, even though they had opted for retirement, they got... basically, they were able to return if they want. They were like, fuck it, we'll just take the retirement.
Yeah.
The 13 who did not get their jobs back, Eric Gregg, Bob Davidson, Bruce Jackman, Richie Garcia, Jim Evans, Tom Hallion, Ed Hickox, Paul Newart, Sam Holbrook, Greg Cox, Ken Kaiser, Larry McCoy, and Mark Johnson. And in October that year, a new union was formed, and Richie Phillips was ousted. So 13 guys in the end lose it. Richie Phillips is ousted. Umpire Joe Brinkman said, "There's no room for Richie Phillips in the new organization."
Okay, as there probably wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still, the umps were split, with many from the NL still supporting Phillips. So the AL umps are all done with Phillips. And the NL's like, oh, he did some good stuff in the past with us. I know he kind of like destroyed our previous union. But he's a good guy. But Brinkman and John Hirschbeck, who we talked about, led the charge against Phillips being a part. So on November 30th, 1999, Phillips was removed in a 57-35 vote, and a new union called the World Umpires Association was formed. Hirschbeck said, "Today is a statement by all Today is a statement by all umpires that it's time for a change."
Okay.
So, Richie Phillips, of course, would shoot back and blame the umpires for everything, and was like, "No, it was their idea." But either way, he would.
I'm innocent.
He did some good stuff for referees, and he was just one of those old union guys that apparently like unionized his fucking parish altar boys back in the day in Philadelphia. Regardless, he's gone now. The association was entirely presided over by umpires, and the negotiations became much more cordial. They signed a new labor agreement in September 2000. Phillips was out, and the 22 umpires struggled to get back into the league without filing lawsuits. Well, I already went ahead to 2001 and told you what happened to a few of them. The new union did take up their cause, they talked about, and here's the thing though. 3 umpires were rehired in 2002, including Gary Darling, Bill Hunn, and Larry Pacino. And while Rich Garcia was awarded a supervisor position. So he got like back time and yeah. In 2004 now, Edsy, as part of negotiations of a new collective bargaining agreement, MLB agreed to hire 3 more umpires, Bob Davidson, Tom Hallion, and Ed Hickox, while also paying out a total of $2.3 million in severance pay to another 6. Rich Garcia was awarded a supervisor position. Did I say that already? Yeah, I said it in both paragraphs. Apparently it happened twice. Anyways, finally, in 2006, the last of the outstanding claims that stem from the wake of the mass resignation in 1999 were finally resolved, with a court awarded back pay to 5 umpires and pension contributions to 2 more. The mass resignation was not a highlight for the labor movement in America or in baseball. The umpires' reaction to the situation caused years of consternation for many of its members. In the end, 10 umpires would leave the game and never ump in the major leagues again.
Wow. I didn't think you'd be... Are you done?
I mean, I have an addendum, but yeah, okay, we can discuss for a moment.
Well, I was just going to say, like, I didn't think you'd be telling me a story that made me feel bad for the umpires union, but you've done it.
Well, yeah, they, like, literally... I
mean, they kind of fucked themselves, but...
They did, you know... It was definitely a wild story that I would have had no idea was taking place as my, like, 10-year-old or 11-year-old self was watching these games, right?
Yeah, it's no idea that was happening.
Yeah.
So are you basically saying that, like, maybe if this, like, dispute doesn't happen, maybe the umpires are still... Maybe the leagues are still a little more separated?
Well, I mean, I think that was an inevitability.
Because, like, I feel like that was kind of, yeah, I guess you're probably right. Like, it feels like that was sort of the last true, like, marker of the leagues being truly separate.
Yeah, and also...
Because they'd had interleague at that point.
Yeah, that's a good point. You make actually a really good point about that. So, I will add an addendum to this, which is... Richie Phillips died in 2013, and the funniest part was I was like reading an interview with an umpire that was saying really nice stuff about him. Mm-hmm. And then the umpire retired in 1998.
Okay, yeah. So he did not go through that dispute whatsoever.
And I quote: "This is from Don Denkinger." Who spoke to the Associated Press when Richie Phillips died in 2003. He kept talking until 6 a.m. if that's what it took. Every once in a while, he'd stage a breakdown, throw something against the wall, or get something to get attention. But he wanted baseball to know that we were important, that we were valuable and worth it."
He's like a crazy manager.
Yeah. But
flipping tables and stuff to inspire the team.
But once again, I think Denkinger is a little bit out of touch because this is one of the best. I put these two quotes together from two different sources. And he goes on to say to the Associated Press here as well. He says, "Richie would always tell guys to stick together, and we'd get things hammered out. And that's what they did. When it all came apart in 1999, he didn't have everybody. He didn't have 100%. So he's just kind of like blames a little bit the union. Like, you guys should have all really quit.
Yeah.
Like, and not started taking back your...
Yeah, you guys didn't really have, like, a full consensus to what you really wanted there.
Yeah, and to put that in perspective, umpire Dave Phillips, who was a part of that in 1999, hilariously said of anybody who criticized the umps for not sticking together... And I quote, "Those people in Jonestown who drank the Kool-Aid, they stuck together. They're all dead."
Oh my God. It's so final.
Yeah. I will say I did find the probably the most succinct quote to finish this off here that umpire Bob Davidson gave to the New York Times in 2004. And I quote, "It was asinine. The whole strategy was horrendous. We made a mistake. We were victim of our own success with Richie Phillips. We had always prevailed because we stuck together. I think the guys who broke away from the union did the correct thing. They saw the strategy was going to fail." And it really did. Mm-hmm. It absolutely did, Etsy.
Yeah, they were like, "Oh, this guy's like gotten too, this guy's overconfident because of the win in 95.
Well, and he'd won a whole bunch of times before, which is a story for another day. But yeah, that was the time that all the umpires quit back in 1999.
Wow, what an amazing story. And like I say, I didn't think you'd be telling me a story that made me feel a little bit bad for the umpires union, but you did it. Another umpire story from Sean. Amazing.
Well, I didn't expect this one to be as long as it was. I literally thought this would be a quick one. But there was a lot of meat on the bone there, and yeah, they just got rocked. But when is the last time you heard about any like umpire labor stuff in baseball?
Never.
Exactly.
Never hear that shit.
It's done. Apparently between 1970 and 1999, it was a lot.
Yeah.
Anyways, till next time, where can people find us?
You can find us on Twitter at Doing Baseball and on Instagram and TikTok at Doing.Baseball. And I'm on Twitter at EdsDoBaseball.
I'm on Twitter at SeanDoBaseball. We are on whatever, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Prime, Apple, Amazon. I don't know. Just give us a review.
Give us a rating. And of course, thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Can't wait. Episode 100 coming up soon, Tedsy.
Yeah, and shout out to Two Loons.
Two Loons, of course. I called you Tedsy.
Yeah, Tedsy. I don't like that. Don't call me that. Yeah, Two Loons. Please enjoy responsibly and be of legal drinking age.
Why do you always say that? Sorry. Okay, till next time. I'm Sean.
And I'm Ed.
And we were doing the baseball.
Okay, bye.